Are you ready? Happy Monday, everyone, and welcome to the show, where it really is okay to not be okay. I'm Rae Bonney, a qualified counsellor, workplace mental health specialist, not to mention a very dedicated and oftentimes enthusiastically disruptive men's issues advocate. It's very rare, but I do dare. With you for the next hour, it is a public holiday here in Melbourne today. Not sure what it's actually for, but that hasn't stopped me from coming into the studios to unwrap one of the greatest gifts going around, and that is people. Layer by layer, we explore the thoughts, experiences, achievements, challenges of ordinary people bound to inspire the best you. At the same time, acknowledging that it really is okay to not be okay. So turn up your radio. Now we're into the second week of autumn, where we see so much change, especially with our leaves, our weather sometimes. Maybe your bed sheets, towels, smoke alarm batteries. I don't know, but now the human condition is generally quick to adapt to change despite being resistant to it. This is true biologically, socially and culturally. But how do we manage our experience when too many changes occur at once? Today I'm speaking with celebrity sweethearts Ineke Carey and Steve Carey about their own bittersweet story of unexpected change and how they've managed to keep the stars in their eyes and the wolves from the door. Now, Steve Carey, you probably will know, is one of Australia's most experienced TV news and public affairs executive. During a career spanning more than 35 years, some of his highlights include presenting ABC News, working as a foreign correspondent, chief of staff on the Sydney 2000 Olympics, remember that, supervising producer of Today Tonight, don't blame him for that, and director of news for Channel 7 Melbourne. Now, Steve retains excellent relationships at every level of business, media, sport and politics, not to mention a one-time regular on my 3WBC Friday breakfast show with his scary media moments. Now, Ineke, his beautiful wife, is also no slouch in the media and entertainment department. She's also been a regular here at 3WBC and can often be found gracing catwalks and being at the favourable end of a camera lens. So after that massive build-up, welcome to the show, guys.
I would have come in just for that.
Wow, Rae, I'm feeling better already.
We have 5 minutes left of the show.
I know.
Speak up now or forever hold your peace.
Thank you very much. Great to be here.
Thank you for having us.
It is. And it's a thrill to see, because I haven't seen your faces, your beautiful faces, for a long time, even though we do talk regularly on the phone.
It's always a pleasure.
It's been a few years, because when I was speaking to you guys on the phone the other day, I commented, I said to Ineke, how old are you?
Oh, God, no.
And
keep the illusion alive.
And I thought, she must be 31 or 32, which...
Love the fact you can't count.
You've still got a 3 in your age, but that goes to show how long we've been very good friends for.
Indeed.
As well. So I remember the first time I met you, Ineke, we had a conversation that was booked in my diary to last for 45 minutes. I think it was 3 hours later.
It was, and it was the most holistic experience I've ever had, bar none. I think even now it's one of those amazing, wonderful experiences that I wish people actually had for themselves. And now I get to keep you, so yay for me.
We did. We kept each other, and you did mention that you had married the man of your dreams prior to us meeting, but if that hadn't have happened, I'm sure you and I would be... we would be definitely benefiting from the legislative changes of recent days.
Wake from that nightmare, Ineke. Wake from that nightmare.
But then you did allow me to meet your beautiful husband, Steve, on a very day that I had sustained a acrobatic injury the night before. Literally on a trapeze I'd been and had a bit of a crash that had affected my hand. I mean, you can still see my finger now. It's still mangled.
I actually told you to go and get it checked.
You did.
I remember I said, Rae, that is not normal. That is not right.
Because my hand was actually blue and black and it was quite enlarged. And so I believed the advice of my PA, Sam Cross, who said, don't worry about it, Rae, you'll be right. And Steve said, Rae, can you please go to the doctor? It turned out I had multiple spiral fractures all through my hand. So thank you, but it didn't really turn out that great. But, I guess reflecting on that and our relationship and a lot of the discussions that we've had about change, and whilst you sit here, one of the most glamorous and loved up couples that I know, your journey has been far from smooth.
Well, we certainly test out our marriage vows.
Yeah.
In sickness and in health, we've done that where I nearly died.
We're currently doing poorer.
We're
You're
we're
always
now
doing
doing the, that's right. We're doing the for richer or poorer. I think we're doing the poorer now, so I'm really looking forward to the richer side.
Yeah.
That'll be nice when that flips. So yeah, I think with every relationship there are peaks and troughs, and
Yes.
it's the journey really.
Well, I've heard it from both sides, and you do collaborate very well about the story of your meeting and then union. But let for our audience benefit, Ineke, I love the way that you tell how you and Steve met and what your expectations were of that relationship all the way back then.
Oh gosh, well, I had a bit of a quarter-life crisis and decided that I wanted to be a TV presenter. So what did I do? I went to uni and when I was doing some work experience, I met Brendan Donahue, who was a state political reporter, and he said to me, well, would you like to come and do some work experience at Channel 7? I said, that'd be fantastic. It was incidentally the first time he'd ever asked someone to do a studio tour in his career. So that's how I met Steve.
Well, you just saw him in the hallway or something.
No. You're better at telling this than
He was
I
probably
am, babe.
shouting at somebody.
No, go on.
Very, very short version.
Yes, please.
Ineke came into the newsroom. She was interested in journalism. I had the ability back in the day to put people on for a week or so of work experience. I said, come for a week of work experience. I found out really quickly Ineke was not cut out to be a news journalist.
Oh,
and
no.
I always say what I think, not what I think people want to hear. So I told Ineke that in my view, she would be better as a lifestyle reporter or something like that. That was fairer. She went off. A few months later, I got a phone call. Hey, it's me. Do you remember me? And I pretended I didn't. And I said, of course. She said, oh, would you like to have a coffee to talk about my journalism? And I said, I don't do coffee. I do lunch.
His immortal words.
What a fool.
What do you mean, what a fool?
What a corny line and a fool back in the day. So we had lunch. One thing led to another. And here we are.
Well, there was a little bit more to it.
Oh, there always is a bit more
that.
to it.
But, you know, back then, how old were you, Ineke?
Oh, Jesus, I was 28.
28. And
I know.
Steve, can you disclose the age difference?
20 years.
20 years difference. So, you know, straight away we have typically a pretty challenged relationship. And it wasn't long after that you guys started dating.
Oh, yes, that's right. No, I'm just trying to recall.
I
'cause
remember. I was
it's
there.
Like a yes, you're looking at me and going, Ineke.
Well, for full
Yes.
disclosure, I was going through a divorce at that point. So, and that was the really difficult thing was that, you know, juggling work, juggling the breakup, and out of courtesy and respect, I wouldn't talk about that too much.
Yeah.
But it was, as any breakup is, it proves really challenging, particularly with two small kids. So I knew that Ineke and I had something really intrinsic and great.
When did you know that, Steve? Did you know that when you told her that she was never going to be a news
No, I didn't.
reporter?
Funnily enough, I didn't. Because, and the weird thing is, we had plenty of
wrong
people
with you?
through the newsroom. Yeah, but newsrooms. I don't know what it was. To this day, we do talk about that pretty often. I say, I don't know what. I don't know what it was. I don't know whether it was.
Animal
don't know.
magnetism.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because you didn't feel it straight away, did you?
No, I was only interested in. So when I asked
Capitalising
him,
on the relationship.
well, yes, it wasn't romantic at all. It was to see how I could possibly get ahead.
Now I'm reflecting on our relationship, Ineke. Was it?
Oh, darling, hush. Ours is special. Oh, don't worry, babe. Ours is too. But
Once we started going out, I knew pretty quickly that Ineke was. I didn't want to. Coming out of a marriage, I didn't want to go dating. I didn't have to because I'd met Ineke and
Yes.
that was it for me. But then in a weird twist, as things were, we haven't told him, we actually split up for a week. It was just too much for me. It was all too much, too soon, too crazy. A week apart, and I just thought, well, no, Inike's the one I want to be with. So I remember sending her a pen and a book for her
It
birthday,
was my birthday, yeah.
in January, and that allowed slowly the communication to open again.
Sorry,
And then
a
away
pen
we
and a
went.
book.
yeah, and
Yeah, I
I've
know,
still got
pretty
it.
corny, isn't it?
Is it still blank?
Oh no! That's all. You're funny. You're good. But no, it was a Mont Blanc
Mont Blanc.
pen.
Mont Blanc. There you go. My mind is blank, but it was a Blanc.
This is back in the days of prosperity, obviously.
Oh, yeah, I reckon.
That's right.
Absolutely.
And I've still got it. I've still got that pen. And I remember...
I'm glad you do, because no one throws away a Mont Blanc.
No, not an expensive pen like that.
No.
But
it was interesting because it took fully a year, because I wanted to make sure that Ineke was the right person to introduce to the kids as well.
Yes.
And that can be a really challenging thing.
Yeah.
There are more than just, two people. Oh, here we go. It's far more than that. Far, at my age, far more. And I had a lot of problems about the age gap.
Yes.
Many. In fact,
Well, that
I
would have
didn't
come
want-
from both sides as well, wouldn't it?
no.
not from Ineke's side.
For
which
the
is
program,
interesting
could you
'cause
just say
your family
yes?
background were quite comfortable with it.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I always thought I would be with an older man. Admittedly, 10 years,
Yeah.
not 20. Like, 20 is a lot.
Yeah.
But, when I met Steve, I say to his mum, I had no choice in it. It was just that chemistry, that instant meeting of minds. It was that spark.
Yeah.
And funnily enough, my grandparents said, oh, Ineke, 20 years difference, that's nothing, and rattled off a whole host of their friends who had 20-year age
European,
differences.
of course.
Of course.
Yeah, so they're Dutch. And I think that, reflecting now, my parents are most probably closer in age to Steve than I am, but
Yes.
they all get along. And when you know us, it doesn't seem like a huge stretch. But over the years, it has been very... I guess it's one of those things when you love somebody and you think about, well, God, when I'm 60, he's going to be 80, or when I'm...
Well, that'll be nothing then, because you'll both be old and wrinkly. But
that's right.
But if we're talking about change here today, and that's
Indeed.
the topic of our show today, that so far you've described Steve's going through change, and you were also getting out of a relationship yourself that wasn't that great.
Yes.
So you were going through career change, relationship change. So there's two changes already happening. And then, of course, you're describing embarking on this relationship where you're thinking about change for your children and how they're exposed to that, and also your ex-partners, your parents, all of the people around you experiencing some part of that change. So I think we're illustrating something really powerful here today of what happened next when you have this expectation where you've both met each other, come to the realisation that there is nobody else, and that there might be a few challenges there. But then, of course, Steve, you had a really big, major life change.
After 27 years at Channel 7 and 10 years of running the news division, I got the tap on the shoulder, which was, we think it's time now for you to step back, which in TV terms means we're replacing you. And funnily enough, I was okay with that decision, because I would have still been there belting my head against a wall and drinking like a fish, and wouldn't have been healthy.
So you've just stopped belting your head against the wall.
I have now, but
Not
it's
the drinking.
taken 6 years.
It's a long time.
It's taken 6 years. So that was really tough, because that was my whole identity at that point, and everything about that. And I had a community of other people that, some friends, colleagues, whatever you want to call, but people I saw every day. And then all of a sudden I went from having that to walking out the door on I think it was a Monday afternoon or a Friday afternoon, and that was it. And that was my life in a business and social sense. That was it. And then coming to grips with that and going through that whole range of emotions of how did I feel? And it was a big roller coaster. And
a typical grief process.
It's worse than it's a death.
Yeah.
It's not a divorce, it's a death. So how you cope with that and how you come through that, and putting all the building blocks mentally in place to say, it's okay, it's actually for the better. And now I can say it is, and has been for the better. It's been absolutely, like if I saw the 7 execs again, I'd say thank you so much, because you never know when you're ready to go sometimes. So
Absolutely. And that's part of change that we resist, isn't it? We don't like change, so therefore we'll make all the excuses that we can to prevent it from happening. But then I guess also in your world, Ineke, wasn't what you signed up for either.
No, but there are lots of things that I didn't sign up for, but you accept. So, like, just quickly touching on Steve, he came with children. So it was going to be a package deal. With some women, they think, oh, I've met the man of my dreams and he's got 2 kids and I can separate that. But that wasn't going to be the case. So I guess from the outset, the decisions that you make early on have different ramifications 10 years down the track. Similarly with his job, yes, I met him when he was a news director, but life happens, life changes, and it's how you deal with that, how you roll with the punches. So
Yeah.
Steve would always tell me, because we used to be invited to the openings of envelopes. We had a fabulous, fabulous experience of all of these different, top end events. And he said to me, and I remember so clearly, the merry-go-round will soon come to an end. This will soon stop.
When did he flag that?
Oh, years before. Years before it actually happened. So I guess what that means, to translate that, is enjoy the moments that we have.
Yeah.
Enjoy the experiences that we have, because it's not going to be forever. And when it does stop, because it will, because everything does, be prepared for it.
Did you ever think that that was a possibility though?
Well, yes, because nothing lasts forever. So
But at
when
28 years of age, you don't really have a perspective.
That was later down. That wasn't at 28. Yeah.
33, 34. So we'd had a few years of doing that
The
thing,
thing,
and I'd
yeah.
had that already. I guess the main thing that Ineke has given me in my self-doubt, and I had many, even though I came across as assured and confident, and certainly in a business sense I was, but in a personal sense I'd gone through a pretty rough time, and so had my ex-wife, and she's been fantastic. We get on extremely well now. And but at the time, and I have it engraved in my wedding ring, Ineke finally got through my thick head by saying, let's just look at everything as an endless series of now.
It says all of that on the inside of your ring.
It just says endless series of now.
It's going to say there's a
Inside, it
bloody
just
lot of
says
engraving.
Endless series of now.
Yeah.
And what she's saying in not so many words is, just enjoy the moment. So, don't worry too much about what comes, which you do have to forward plan, but in a personal sense, when things hit you and you rock to your core, it will improve, it will get better, accept what it is. But it took me a long time.
Yes. But for the benefit of our listeners today is to really try and impart, and I'm going to backtrack a little bit myself, because, the work that I'm involved in, and I've been working on a project most recently where I've been very up close and personal to probably up to thousands of people over the last few months. So I got to hear so many stories about people's struggle with change. And it's always been a particular interest to me, but so many men coming to me and talking about being better fathers, better husbands, better brothers, better sons. This real push towards men wanting self-improvement rather than damage control, which we're very used to. And that got me thinking about, how can we demonstrate to our listeners some of the key attributes of people to manage through change as best we can, whilst recognising that change can be difficult, can be painful, can be disruptive. But how do we prepare for change rather than react to change? Because we live in this very reactive environment. Our world is very reactive. Something happens across the other side of the world. You pick up your phone in the morning and you turn it on and there's your news, and that's what you react to for the day. But how do we better respond? How do we prepare ourselves with support systems or infrastructure that keeps us safer when we know that we're going to move through change? So when you guys are talking about this show's going to end, the circus is going to come to a halt eventually. So you guys almost did that. You had that in your mind, that there was some infrastructure of safety and containment around your life that knew that we don't know what the change is going to be, but we know it's going to happen.
Well, I think that's a really good question. For myself, it comes down to the trust that you have and the communication that you have with your partner. To be able to be in a safe environment where you can tell them what your fears are, what you anticipate, the event that's about to change, or in terms of when it actually happens. And funnily enough, I was made redundant from my position, so I gave Steve a call after I'd had the quiet come into the boardroom, and I called him up and I said, babe, I've just had the phone call. I've just had the conversation myself. And he said,
I think that was after you phoned me, wasn't it?
I think so, that's right. And he said to me, okay, you know where to go. And so I went straight to Flight Centre and booked we went to Hong Kong and Shanghai. Yeah. So, sometimes it's, and maybe that's a great thing to have something to look forward to.
Yes.
So,
I think you've got to be a realist. That's what I've learned, because I'm a bit older. I'm 20 years old. I think you have to understand that there will be change. That was the first time I'd ever been let go from any job in my entire life. So for me, it was even more compounding, because I saw myself as a failure. after 27 years, I actually thought of myself more as a failure, that I'd hit the benchmark and achieved certain things, but I hadn't been given the imprimatur or the ability or the time to turn things around to where I wanted it to be. So part of my advice to anybody going through that would be, understand that you will grieve, write down a plan. Like, I actually bullet pointed, and I keep it with me, a plan, just a 5-point plan of health is really important. Take time for yourself is really important. Look to your family and friends. Make sure that you understand that there will be things that will come that you have no knowledge about, and enjoy the moment. You know, those are the things that I try and do with a bit of meditation or whatever every day now as part of my go-to. And I try to have one day, very unsuccessfully a week at the moment, but I try to have a day or even an hour where I do my guitar lesson.
I thought you were going to say an alcohol-free day. But
Well, we can't all be perfect, Rae. No, please.
No, but look, that's a really perfect point to go to a break on, because I'd love to unpack those 5 points. Sounds a bit like a Jeff Kennett 5-year plan, but
I don't support Hawthorne.
Jeff only ever has a 5-year plan. But the song that we're about to play is something that is significant to you guys as well. And Steve, you were listening into the wireless the other day, no doubt, because that's probably
the wireless
where you would hear where you would hear such a song. But it's a great song that describes. Well, you describe it.
Well, it's by Mendel as anything. It's bricks and clay, and it
No, it's
basically
not.
No, it's not. It's concrete and clay.
Concrete and clay.
Well,
bricks and mortar.
Bricks and mortar, concrete and clay. And I better let Ineke finish.
Oh, no, don't do that. No, well, I think it's a beautiful, beautiful song about two people, and everything can rumble around them, but their love will never die.
Good one. We're talking all about change. In fact, we could have even played a David Bowie song there. That would have fit in quite well. Changes. Changes.
Karaoke session.
No, it is a great song. Whatever you want to call it, bricks and mortar, clay and plasticine.
Concrete and clay.
Yeah.
Concrete and clay.
I'm never going to make it on Countdown, am I?
No.
Now, before we went to the break, we were talking about, Steve, you were giving some words of wisdom around your 5 points. My headphones are turning on and off here, and that's really annoying. So those 5 points, can you just go through those again around, your guides to life there?
Oh, it was just, look, things to live by for me. The main one, I reckon, is exercise. I can't stress that enough. I mean, family and everything's great, but you've got to do some things for yourself. And I think exercise has been an absolute lifeline for me.
Sexercise.
Oh, well, there you go. Yay, that too.
Keeps marriages together. That's my
little
clean.
tip. This is a G-rated show, isn't it?
Right. Is there like a little censor button going on here?
No, it's all right. It's a public holiday.
Oh, people are listening. Oh, God.
But I just think exercise, like, and you're right. You can do it together, but it doesn't have to be that. But we walk a lot together too.
Yeah, I've gone all red.
I know, I have. I've gone like a beetroot.
He's blushing. So are you, by the way, too.
So, I think exercise does a couple of things. It makes you feel better about yourself. It gives you time to think. Oh. And I'm not talking pumping iron or being an Olympian. I'm just, like, I do a bit of yoga, a bit of reform, whatever floats your boat, frankly.
Well, do you know what? I've started walking to the radio station and back every time. So instead of sitting down and writing my show at home, I actually write it in my head on the way here.
Well, that's a
while
great
I'm
idea.
walking. Yeah, and it gives me much more clarity. And you're right, you're moving forward and you're in motion. And by the time I get here, all my airways are all breathed out, and
you're ready to go.
Yes,
but it's also the dopamine as well that gets released. So that fantastic feeling of being positive. But being in nature as well, I think that's really important when you're in a really bad, dark place. Sometimes you just need to get out into nature.
Yeah.
Whether it's a park, for me, it was Chadstone Shopping Centre was my Brer Rabbit happy place. I know.
I'd be in opposite worlds there.
Indeed. But then also going out, the fresh sunshine.
Yes.
So going back to, for me, it was yoga and Pilates.
Yes.
And I introduced Steve to yoga and Pilates, and then so I was like, oh, well, this is my husband. And then he would go so often that they said, oh, that's Steve's wife. I'm like, hang on, how did that turn around? What?
He has a manner of just taking over, doesn't he?
Oh, he's brilliant that way,
Yeah.
but I love him for it. So, what else?
Oh,
what
the
else
other
is on
thing
your
was
list?
family and
Yes.
friends. You have to be honest enough to know that you can't do it all yourself sometimes, and there's no shame in it. And I think from a guy's perspective, you lose a lot of your identity. You lose a lot of your reason. You lose a lot of that thing that makes you a man. And I know that sounds very old-fashioned, but
Not at all.
I guess I turned a negative into a positive.
Yes.
And I allowed myself to be immersed in the children, to absolutely be the dad that I always wanted to be.
You're an amazing dad.
So
But I
very
also
happy with
love that you touched on that masculinity thing, because we're seeing a lot in our media and in our social pipes now about the role that men play, or also how men are being critiqued about their behaviour. And, I think it's having a big impact on masculinity. We're talking about toxic masculinity in a way that every man is infected with some toxic piece. And, we're building this fear culture around men. But when you're talking about that preservation of dignity and pride, and I think that is intrinsically Australian as well. And when you ask somebody what they do, it's not tennis and golf. It's what do you do? Who are you? And when you lose that identity, like you described, Steve, with that goes pride, dignity, preservation of those things, and also, what do you stand for? What's your purpose?
It can be really depressing.
Oh, well, that's where we find a lot of men die.
Depressed person. I don't look at myself as someone with depression.
Don't you?
But I should look in the mirror more often, right?
I was just about to say I give you many reasons to feel depressed at times.
But I just think, though, you can... I wouldn't say I have that nature. I like to be happy-go-lucky. But, boy, after you get something like that... And I've been unhappy and sad, and we've had some very brutal conversations between Ineke and I, and particularly over the last couple of years where Ineke has been doing freelance work but not full-time. And I've found the burden of carrying all that extreme. And we've had some very tough conversations where I felt I wanted to see more from Ineke, and she met the challenge. And she has met the challenge, and, good on her. But they're tough conversations to have.
Yes.
But you've got to have them.
But what you describe, having those in environments of safety and security, where your communication is very open and that you trust, even if Steve's delivering you a difficult message, that, you can trust in that love and safety and security at the same time.
Indeed, it's something that is a benchmark. It has to be implicit in a relationship so that when you are having those really tough conversations, that's not called into question. It's not like, well, either you do this or X, I'm out.
Yes.
So, threatening the sanctity of our marriage, well, that's nothing. It's not something that's going to be called into question, because we've been through so much, but we love each other.
Yes.
And although I think that sounds rather soppy when I'm saying it, but when I've been around, I know, sorry, didn't realise we've morphed into a different kind of conversation here. But no, look, for the past, so when I finished up, I didn't know that it was going to be 2+ years of being in the wasteland of trying to go through that whole soul destroying search of finding a job, and it's not that easy.
When you'd already experienced Steve going through something similar and supporting him, and then you're in the same bucket, but it looks different.
Well, that's right. I mean, when you've got one person in a relationship who's bringing home the bacon, so to speak, then if one person's had the rug pulled from underneath them, at least you've got one, wage that you can, anchor yourself to. But when you're in a situation where both rugs have been pulled and, one partner's getting a brand new business together, which also has its own challenges as well, as
Yes.
you'd know, then that's when everything starts to be a bit more not as rock solid.
Yeah, well, you don't have rugs anymore. You've got floorboards
No,
and splinters, haven't you?
You got a hoverboard and you're hoping Tesla's going to come along. So, it's having that belief in yourself, but also the ability to not face your fear, but look within and say, right, okay, so as for me, when it came to change, and I had a lot of things going on in my life that all my plates just came crashing down all at once. And so sometimes you just need to take a back step and talk to a friend or talk to a professional and say, right, okay, well, what's happened? What are these things that maybe are intrinsic within me that I need to change because they're no longer serving a purpose.
Oh, that's right. Changing within that change space. And I like that Steve also mentioned, and you've just mentioned now, is friends and family, really, really important to creating that environment of safety and security, an infrastructure that contains you whilst you go through change. And something I always never fail to mention when I'm speaking is the wattle tree analogy. Now, the wattle tree, it's beautiful, isn't it? It's iconic, it's yellow, it's big, it's glorious, it's an Australian icon. But if you should suffer from allergies, you need to be very far away from one of these things. But it doesn't mean you've got to chop it down, burn it down and rip it out of the ground. You just stay away. And that's like people. If people don't make you feel good, it is okay to stay away. You don't have to be disrespectful or rude or mean. Just stay away. And that includes family members that don't make you feel good.
True.
It's okay to not include them in your life. You don't have to be rude. And I think that so many people do suffer through relationships because the expectation is, it's your mother, it's your father, it's your brother. You should, but don't.
I think that's so true. Taking a step back to allow that space so that you have clarity of mind, and then you find that you can settle yourself. I love the analogy of going on a plane. What's the first thing that they tell you in those security and safety mechanisms?
They tell you a lot. They tell you to take your seatbelt off now. Well, they told me to take my seatbelt off the other day because they were refueling. I thought, I almost said the F word then.
I clearly haven't been on a plane in a while then.
Yeah, they said, please remove your seatbelt. I thought, gee, does this mean if the plane goes up, I've got a running chance?
Yeah, I reckon. I was just about to say, well, there you go. Maybe we need to go on a plane trip so that I can.
So was that the
refresh.
analogy you were using about buckle up?
No. It was more a case of you need to put on your oxygen mask first.
Oh, right.
You don't help your kids. You don't help people around you. You've got to do it to yourself first. You do. You've got to give yourself a bit of self-love. So it's funny.
That just sounded terrible. You need to do it to yourself. You need to give yourself some self-love.
You do.
Again, it's a public holiday. We can say whatever.
You started it with the whole exercise thing. So.
I think we're giving some great advice today.
But no, true. If you don't work and if you can't function mentally and emotionally, you can't help anybody else. That's what it comes down to. So if you're going through change and you can't cope because of what's happening to you, sometimes you've got to remove yourself, be kind to yourself.
And that's one of those points. That was my third point. Really was have time for yourself.
Yes.
And I suppose...
Because it's not selfish, is it?
It's not selfish.
No, it's
A
imperative.
lot of people think that that's selfish, that, you see so many families that have, say 4 kids and they all do 2 different sports, play a musical instrument. And, what happens to parents? What happens to those relationships with parents that all of a sudden are becoming, just ferrying children around to events?
Well, what I'd probably say is at one point when Ineke, during the worst part of trying to find my own way, establish a new business, Ineke finding work, the kids, the ex, the whole thing. I actually felt a couple of times, I said to Ineke, I felt like I was being stretched to invisibility. I felt like I was so veneer or so transparent that I could hardly keep myself together. And I said, you know what? I need time to myself, whether that's just walking on the beach or fishing or guitar or whatever. Yeah. I'm going to take it. And the mindset has to be, it's okay. And that change in me was massive because I've always been a doer for everybody. Or in my mind, I have other people may dispute that.
Oh, but
he's the glue.
But I still see you like that.
Yeah,
as well.
But I guess from my point of view, it's been a seismic shift to say when I need a break or when I need help, I now ask for it. So taking time for myself means that I then have the ability to look with more clarity and say, you know what, I can't keep doing this by myself. I have people who love me and I'm actually going to allow them to help me and do that. So that was sort of the third one.
Because that shift for you, and when we're talking about icons and talking about how we see ourselves, that position at Channel 7 being news director, that is so iconic. You're the man.
Yeah, there's a handful of people in the country that have done it or will do it or do it.
Yeah. And not saying that you're superhuman or anything like that, but it is a very, very iconic role where you'll look to every single day of your life, you're the man. Or the woman.
Which is good.
Or the person, whatever you like. But I love when you just describe then being stretched to transparency. That's can I please use that?
Absolutely, because it was new for me, but it was so, and that was my clarity moment where I went, And I actually said to Ineke, I cannot do this anymore. And I knew if I kept trying that something mentally or health-wise would happen that would not be good. So that was a shock, but great moment and a breakthrough moment for me.
Do you remember that, Ineke?
Oh, look, it's, yes. Yes, I do. There have been many moments, though. It's not just, I think that it's not just a one time.
You almost choked then. Was it one of those moments?
Oh, gosh, what can I say? My apologies, Ray. I was trying to hold it in, but it's... There are many moments in life where
But how
you
did
are
it feel
stretched
when Steve was stretched to that point and he articulated to you that he may have been at shattering point?
It was a clarion call. It was terrific. It was... How do you describe when you look at someone and that person is experiencing that moment where you know that they're just going to crash and burn or the pressure just implode? And it's self-awareness.
No, but tell me how you felt.
Well, that's how I felt. I felt like, how can I give this man support?
Were you scared though?
No, I wasn't scared. I was glad that he was able to tell me how he was feeling. I was glad that he was able to say to me, this is not going well and it needs to change because this situation is untenable. How can we help? How can I help you? How can I make it better? What do I need to do in order to support you? Because without him, it doesn't work.
No.
So I think that's the important thing. It's being aware that your partner is talking to you and that you listen to that. And that you say, how? And I asked him, I said, how can I help you? How can I support you?
But what happens if he doesn't know? And this is where I see a lot of people disengage. And I'm seeing it a lot at the moment with organisational change, where I've known a number of people who, like Steve, have lost very big jobs very abruptly. One in particular, he kept on going to work for 2 weeks. Couldn't tell his wife because his wife is pregnant. Didn't want to put pressure on his wife, and which is very, very typical in relationships, that
that's hard.
we manage our own SH1T. We don't want to put it on somebody else. So sometimes when we say to somebody, how can I help you? The person might not have the answer. And I always think a great question, I'll repeat it because I always do on my show, is what does it feel like being you today? What does it feel like? A person's got a much better chance of describing a feeling of being stretched, a feeling of feeling transparent, a feeling of wanting to cry or break, to go, oh, okay, that's what it feels like. But what is it? I don't know. It just feels bad.
Well, I guess in terms of that, what did I do in that moment? Well, I knew that there are things within my power that I could alleviate to make it easier, so it wasn't something that he had to think about. And it might have been mundane things like taking up the slack when it came to, oh gosh, it sounds stupid, but just keeping the house, or if he needed his kids to be ferried around.
Or if I needed some time.
Yeah.
That was the gift. Because both of us at one point not having a purpose, you're in and out of each other's pockets, and that's wonderful. I mean, if I had to be on a desert island, give me Ineke, please.
Yeah.
But at some point, it was nice to be able to say, I love you, but please just give me the ability, without feeling guilty, that I need some time to me.
Yeah.
And that was another big thing, you know, and that's sort of brings me to my fourth point too. My fourth point in my sort of
Public
world,
holiday disclaimer again. I thought it was Colin.
is you can't know everything. You can't. You can prepare, but you don't know what's coming.
No.
So you just have to roll with it. And I think as a couple, we've rolled with it. And I make mistakes every day and continue to. But I hope you learn from them.
What would you say to people who don't have partners like myself? And I can probably answer the question because I know what it feels like when life doesn't turn out or expectations aren't met and things don't turn out like you planned. There isn't anyone for me to go, oh, can you pick up the slack? Can you pay the rent? Can you, the mortgage, whatever it might be? And I think that in some way is empowering because you don't have to manage somebody else's expectations whilst you're managing your own. So there's probably some of the things that you're talking about, surrounding yourself with the right people, creating an environment that supports the best you, rather than trying to be too much to too many is another good thing. To when you don't have a lot of energy and a lot of space and time to manage, to make it small and manageable.
And the final point from is enjoy. You know, it's just
You too.
It's just the biggest thing, don't you think? Like,
You two make enjoyment out of anything. You know, I
we
love
do,
that.
actually.
You do.
Yeah.
I love that about you two. You just,
But you've got to. I mean, with that
yeah.
joy, if you don't have any joy in your life, what is the point?
But we can get joy walking along the beach finding a cuttlefish shell.
Yeah.
In fact, I still do.
Yeah.
But I think we do. I found one. Check this. Oh wow! And look at this. Woo! I think my problem is I'm like a puppy. Sometimes I get too overexcited, and I know you do too. So we have really good days, and it can be as simple as walking down High Street, having a look at the front of a shop, and going, "Wow! Check that out. Isn't that interesting?" And walking in. I think you've got to be engaged by other people too.
Yes.
You know, and ask and get some of their vibe from the day. Not all about all the time, me. It's the other day we went into a shop and we had a great, and I'm not going to go the whole thing.
No, I know.
But just met this wonderful couple of salespeople that turned the whole day around. It was just fun.
It was enjoyable, like a fabulous retail therapy session where...
There was no spin, no drama, no issue. But it was fun because they were entertaining.
Yeah.
Well, that's right.
Don't give them a shout out. Who are they?
Go on, you
Oh,
can.
Sarah Stillman. So she owns this beautiful shop called Stillman, and she's a stylist, and she's very eclectic, and she has...
High Street Armadale.
Yes,
Yeah.
High Street Armadale, and the clothes.
Yeah.
So the outfit that brought us in was this beautiful cream cashmere coat with this Cruella de Vil-esque Arctic white fox fur, and I looked at, and it had this leopard print dress underneath, and I mean, you can't be sad when you see that.
And get this, Rae, because we were polite to them and we were engaged, for like the next, it would have been nearly an hour.
Yeah.
They let Ineke play dress ups, and I was sitting there.
I was going to say, did you put it on?
Yeah,
Of course
it was
I
great.
did.
It was
Did you get
really good
photos?
fun.
Oh, no, we didn't.
Oh, you have to get back down to Sarah Stillman and put that back on him so we can put some
Well, you
photos on
should
the...
go.
Oh, I tell you
I
what, the
should.
clothes though, beautiful. So,
Yeah.
enjoyment out of beauty.
Yes.
Enjoyment out of nothing.
But
Doesn't cost
but
you
also
much.
the
Yeah.
engagement with Sarah Stillman as well. It was
Well,
her?
that's
Was it
right.
her?
Yeah,
Yeah,
she
yeah.
was there.
So
And,
and
the lady,
Charlotte,
and
who was the
Charlotte,
other-
who was the salesperson. But unless you're open to it, unless you're looking and you want to engage. So I would say if you're feeling down or feeling depressed or you're feeling stretched, take the time to enjoy. And that can be enjoy others' company that you don't know. Have a conversation, don't you
Yes.
think?
Oh, definitely. I mean, it's one of my biggest advocacies is, asking somebody, what does it feel like being you, to go into that shop, to go, hi, I love this outfit, tell me about it, rather than just walk past to go, can't afford it, it's too expensive, bloody Sarah and all her money,
Well, but that's true. But sometimes I think we need to have permission to be distracted by the beautiful things in life. And you can find the beauty of, in nature. You can find the beauty in the coffee art in Melbourne, which always makes me
You do,
laugh.
yeah, because you posted on Facebook.
I did. Mercedes-Benz with their teddy bear latte. I mean, seriously, that was just awesome.
Well, I love Mercedes-Benz. I mean, I don't drive one. I drive a BMW, but because we get paid exorbitant amounts of money here.
there you go.
I'm
Not
driving,
the-
I'm driving a go-kart.
Mine was built in 1989 as well, but I love going to Mercedes-Benz in Berwick. Give them a bit of a shout out. Craig Howard and his team down there, who were recently awarded Metropolitan Dealership of the Year, followed up by their National Dealership of the Year. In fact, Craig Howard is one of those people who is an amazing leader. As soon as you're in Craig's company, you just feel so cared for. Even when he's going through something terrible. Remember the hailstorm?
Oh,
Yeah,
gosh,
yeah.
yes.
So a lot of their, basically all their cars got wiped out.
Wow.
Any car that was sitting outside. So you can imagine what that means to a business like that around Christmas time when you're supposed to be delivering Mercedes-Benz to people for Christmas. And that particular day I was due to go down there and he couldn't meet with me because he was busy dealing with, insurers and stuff. But he made a point of sending down a bottle of champagne and glasses just to say, thank you, Rae. I appreciate you. Sorry I can't see you, but get drunk.
Wow.
In the car lot. No.
Well, hang on. Now that's actually no drink driving.
No, I didn't. I waited till I got home. But even though I couldn't see him, that's his way of being very thoughtful, and that's what I love, and that's why he continues to get dealership of the year after year, because he runs an authentic business that really, really cares.
And you don't get that. That's quite
Like
rare.
Sarah Stillman. I'm gonna put her link on once I post this show on YouTube, my YouTube channel, and also my podcast.
I'll have to give her a call.
We'll put a link on to Sarah's establishment, so people can go down there. She'll have a whole stream of people trying on this outfit.
Oh, I tell you what, it's pretty good. I've
It'll
seen
be
some
muddy
sunglasses. I've seen some sunnies that I want, but for $790, I think I might have to get a job first.
But maybe the outfit might become so sullied by people trying it on that she'll have to just give it away to you.
Oh, wouldn't that be? Maybe I might just, just drop that little pearl.
Yeah, just whiz it through the wash and it'll be all
I don't
good.
think you can whiz this through the wash, darling. But I guess, with Steve and his 5-point plan.
Yes. Do we get to the last?
Yeah, the enjoyment.
The enjoyment, yeah.
Enjoyment.
Yeah.
So,
and can I just say, that's just my plan.
Well,
what I love about people is everyone's intrinsically different, right? What works for me doesn't necessarily work for someone else. But if you just take time to understand that the only constant is change, and change is going to keep coming. So my sort of final message, I guess, to your audience would be, embrace change. It can be frightening, and sometimes it is, and sometimes it's difficult, but if you rely on good people, you've got good friends like you, Rae, and I've got Ineke,
and that's all you've got.
Time is good, and change is okay.
Yes.
Because when you're going through the crap, you know that there's the good stuff that's going to be coming.
But also when you say just embrace change, or don't. If it doesn't feel right, it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to not want to. And, yesterday I was presenting on the Spectrum here at 3WBC, which is our show about autism. And, I always look through that lens of what it might feel like being on the spectrum. And so many people have attributes and coping abilities that aren't the same as everybody else's. And so, what does change look like for somebody who sits on the spectrum? And in the workplace especially, it can be horrific. Sitting somebody next to a photocopier, artificial light, no windows can be really, really distressing. So when we're changing our environments, for example, to hot desking or, transient workplaces, for some people it's terrifying, and we're not recognising that, people and change, sometimes it's very, very difficult, and how do we make those environments better?
So true.
So on that note, let's make a wrap on this. Anyone that would like to... got quite a few messages that we need to get back to.
Quick, Rae, save us.
But if anyone does have some feedback, please get back to me. Go to Presenting Rae Bonney on Facebook and leave me a message there. As I said, also, this show, amongst many others, is posted on my YouTube channel, which is just Rae Bonney. Have a fabulous long weekend, everybody. Thank you, Ineke and Steve, for your amazing contribution today. I love having you on the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having us, Rae.
Thank you for having us. It's been great.
All right, we'll see you next week at the same time. Take care.